Hey guys, Greg here, owner, operator of Bone Tactical. As you guys probably know by now, we've been doing the F-250, 2006 F-250 build. We're currently doing a series on the lighting. I'm finally getting around to doing the electrical, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to show you guys how I prefer to do electrical. You guys know I'm all about reliability, so I have a way that I do vehicle electrical. I've done several vehicle builds. You guys know the quality of the things that I make. I'm known for my clothing line at this point and my knife making and self-defense tools, things of that nature. I do go a little bit above and beyond, so this video won't necessarily be for everybody, but Jones loves my videos and will continue to watch them regardless of whether you guys do or don't. Anyway, all joking aside, let's get into the tools here that I recommend. I get a lot of my stuff off Amazon. You guys don't have to, but these days Amazon is really hard to beat. So as far as doing electrical goes, I recommend some basic electrical tools. I recommend having a stripper of some sort. Yes, you can strip with a knife. A stripper like this just makes life a whole lot easier if you can afford it. Not absolutely necessary. A crimper is more important even than a stripper, because if you're going to be doing crimping, this does a much better job than you can do with just a pair of pliers. Okay, ratchet, that's just not necessarily for electrical, but when you're working on a vehicle, it's nice to have a socket set. Okay, a cutter, all right, this is just a very basic, very cheap cutter, wire cutter. So you got a cut wire, you got a strip wire, and you got a crimp wire. That's the basics. Then you have your connections. There's a lot of different types of connections. Here we have the two that I use most commonly. I really like to use these because it's heat shrink and solder all in one. So you just stick the wire, one you cut and strip the wire, obviously. You stick it so the two wires are crossing there in the center, and it's got solder already in there. So then all you got to do is heat it with a heat gun. The solder melts the two wires together, and it puts a little sleeve. Basically, it heat shrinks it all at the same time. I do also run more heat shrink, so there we go. I do run heat shrink on top of these connections. This connection here, you still heat it with a heat gun, but you crimp it. So then it's got the section in there where the two wires meet up, and then you crimp them. Then you're gonna have different size wires basically for different size connections. I don't like to use these connections. I will say we're doing this video with Auxbeam. You guys have probably seen the Auxbeam install of the lights. Okay, front bumper, back bumper, we've already got them in. Auxbeam goes above and beyond. They have a relay with the switch, okay, and a really great wiring harness. They send all this stuff in the case. I don't like to use these connections anyway, so I probably won't. I'll probably cut them and use these. In the case, I'm also going to use this vehicle's standard lighting switches. Okay, so this F-250 happens to have some lighting switches built in, aux switches. None of these are wired, they're just extra for if you want to put them in. All right, and down here is where we have the fuse panel, so I will get into that here in a second as soon as I finish showing you the tools. Actual wiring of the 2006 F-250, but that's kind of the layout and what I recommend. So these are the driving lights that we're installing on the front. Well, we've already installed, the video's up. I'm gonna wire them up now. I've just got the wires loose hanging here, and we're gonna go ahead and wire them up. This truck, like I said, it has some already wired into the system with like little pieces. So I just have to, they've already got some wires going through the firewall, and then they're just loose wires not connected to anything here, and then they're just loose wires not connected to anything here. But they're already connected to the switch, so I have to connect them from the inside to the switch, and then from the outside to the lights, or from the engine bay to the lights, and from the inside to the switch. Everything else should be connected as far as I know. The first thing is to get this off. So got my socket here. I'm just gonna basically pull these 10mm screws out, and then everything already should be wired into these switches. They're different amperages, so I'm probably going to wire them into I'm going to wire them into the lowest amperage, just because I don't want to have a huge heavy amp circuit when I don't need it. If I want to connect something bigger later on, these LED lights and LED lights in general just only require a very small amount of energy, so I'm gonna a small amperage, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that off right now. Alright, so just on pulling it out, I can tell there's some wires here that are just, like I said, just ends of wires. So these are probably the auxiliary wires. If I check the loom right here, it definitely says aux 1, aux 2, aux 3. It probably even has the color codes on there, which it does. Cool. So yeah, there we go. I just connect these wires here to obviously the heavier gauge wires, or the higher amperage circuits, and the smaller ones are the lower circuits. So I've got switches, I've got 4 switches here. I should be able to connect these wires right here to the pass-through wires. So there should be some pass-through wires hanging around in here too somewhere, maybe a little higher up. There's some cut-off wires here, but I don't know for sure. That's them. So I'm gonna do some digging in here and see where the cut-off wires are and what they look like. I can also check under the hood to see what the other end of the cut-off wires look like where they pass through the firewall. All right, so these are the pass-through wires right here. At least I believe they are, but there are some pass-through wires that Ford puts in their wire loom from factory, and then I've managed to find some wires that look the same on the other side. So what I'm gonna do is strip these and then connect them right to basically I'll strip them with this stripper right here, like that. Right there is the connection, so I'll crimp it right there. Both ends of the bare wire will go in there. I'll heat it with the heat gun, and then extra protection on top of that. right, so the rest of what I've got to do, all I really got to do, the lights are here. Here's the light itself. All right, I'm going to put a plug in there. And one of the reasons that I like to run a plug is because I want to have the ability to pull the bumper off the truck without having to cut wires. So I can just unplug these if I need to pull the bumper off and make modifications to the bumper or anything like that. Or if I want to change the lights, then, you know, or take the lights off, anything like that. It's just nice to have the plugs. So all I'm really going to do is run these plugs. One real quick tip, when you buy plugs off Amazon, make sure that you get the really thick wire ones, because almost all the regular and cheap plugs that they sell are, and this is the biggest ones you can find, the double plug, the biggest you can find, and it's really the minimum that I would want to use. So don't get the cheap ones because they're just really cheap and crappy. So definitely was a little bit more work than I thought it was going to be. I had to pull apart all of those wiring harnesses because I didn't have enough wire. They weren't long enough, because you can see how much distance here. What I ended up doing was I wired into those switches that were already there, and then they were actually kind of difficult. The wires coming out of here, I don't know if somebody at one point, this truck has had a previous owner a long time ago, and I don't know if that person had something connected there and then cut the wires. So it was quite a bit of work doing the wiring up to the pass-through and everything, but it was success. And then the wiring harnesses that Auxbeam sent weren't long enough for this vehicle, so I had to cut them all up, remake wiring harnesses. The rear lights have a function to where you can use like a momentary switch, like similar to maybe what you would see on like a Welland or like a police or security or military vehicle, to where the momentary switch will change the function of the light. I don't really need that on this vehicle, so what I ended up doing was just hard wiring as if it was normal, and then using some of that extra wiring as needed to extend it. So I have white light in the back, white light in the front. I don't need all kind of flashers and yellows and different things like that. I just want some lights that'll show me what I'm doing off the back of the truck, and I don't want to be changing the colors on this particular vehicle. So that being said, I'll go ahead and show you the switches and show you the lights. Take a look inside here, and then these are the switches right here. I ended up, like I said, wiring to aux 3 and aux 4 because aux 1 and aux 2 are larger. They have their larger gauge wires, bigger fuses, everything like that. And for these really low draw LED lights, I don't need any kind of serious power. But I will go ahead and just show you when you hit these 3 and 4, the little light comes on under there. It's just a, you know, it's a cool Ford feature basically. So aux 3, aux 4, lights off, lights on. It's got a little light in the thing there. And then we'll go ahead and show you you can already see how much light's shining off of there behind me. Just, it's a ton of light. These lights are awesome. They're very bright, and these ones, the front ones, are ridiculous. But you can come around here and check it out. Just throw an awful lot of light. They're really cool. I like how they look. And I'll show you the front ones real quick as well. So, front lights here. And this is, they're called driving lights, and I could most definitely drive with these. That's just the 2 lights from Auxbeam that I wired in. I'm gonna go ahead and flip on. So I don't know if you guys remember, these lights down here as well are Auxbeam, and then these lights are, I don't remember the brand, but they're some aftermarket LEDs, so they're brighter than your standard Ford lights. But let's see. So these are the Auxbeam driving. I've got some Auxbeam smaller down here in the fogs, and then we'll turn them on and I'll show you guys. So that's your standard driving light, and then there's your Auxbeam. So what we've got here is basically, we've got the driving lights, we've got the Auxbeam lights as well here. Check out the first video where I actually went through all the lights, and I'll link in the description as well below. But Auxbeam, and now these are just the standard lights. These are actually Recon headlights, okay? Not the light bulb itself, but the unit is Recon, and then the lights inside there are some LEDs that I changed out. But you can see these are super bright.
I'll go ahead and show you what the beam pattern looks like here. Just shining, and it just really lights up the night here. You can tell it's pretty dusk, but then it looks like bright as daylight where the lights are shining.